I am Giancarlo Fisichella, and you are listening F1 Weekly.
There are fewer than 30 men in the world qualified to drive Formula One. A mere half dozen, perhaps, to win. At this moment, I'm inclined to think you're not one of them.
No, you want to. Keep up the good work, Stephen, and there you have it. There you go.
Hello, this is Desiree for F1weekly.com. I'm your in-depth correspondent.
Let's go. With the qualifying, Steve.
Welcome to F1weekly.com. My name is Clark Rogers. I'm the host of the program. I'll be joined by Nasser Hamid, my co-host. This is podcast number 823, March 9th, 2020. Nasser?
Thank you, sir. I say there is excitement and heartburn. Sunday, action in Melbourne. Now back to Mate, who was never down nor under.
Thank you, Nasser. On today's program, what's more important, the race or the fans? What's going to happen in Melbourne? NASCAR was in Phoenix. And on today's program, we have a book review. F1 Exposed by Gary Sloan. And on top of that, we have Tech Talk with Tim. Another terrific episode. Nas, welcome to the studio. How are you?
Very good, sir. But wait, there's more. We also have a goodie bag. So this is going to be a fully loaded, not an in-flight burrito, but a fully loaded Vegemite sandwich podcast.
Thank you, Nasser. How is everything?
Things are going very good, sir. I am excited. Coronavirus may not be cornered, but we are looking good for the opening round to be, in the words of Mr. Murray Walker, go, go, go. And the Aussie Grand Prix people have said, no way in hell we're going to have a race with no spectators. So that's good news. And more good news, sir, for us. Action will start on Thursday night because of the time difference. The season may start like 2019 or may start how the last season ended. We are talking silver streak one way or another. How does that make you feel, Mr. Rogers?
Terrible deep down.
Sorry to hear that. Now let's hope Dr. Marco has the right prescription and Max can give Lewis not so fresh feeling after the race. The prancing horse will have to show its pace in real-life situation on Sunday. I think the FIA looking and taking action on their unfair advantage has the team on the Steely Dan program go back Giacomo and do it again. But the real and surprise kick may come from the pink Mercedes, the pram ride of Lance Stroll and his teammate, Senor Speedy Gonzalez. I have a feeling Racing Point may deliver some shocking results during the season. As in Sergio Perez, they have a feisty driver, just as JB or Ocon. And in perfect scenario, there might be more sightings on the podium of his teammate TF1, Trustafarian 1. What do you say on this situation, sir?
Well, it's going to be fascinating. Perez certainly is maybe hungrier than his famous compadre. And I'll talk about the book by Gary Sloan that's coming out, and I suggest everybody purchase it. It sheds a lot of light on the billions that are entering F1, and that is the future.
I think the natives will be restless if local Dingo can bark his way to a podium finish. I would love to see Danny Boy do a shoey in front of his home fans. Despite several Grand Prix wins in his career, his mate Mark Webber never had the opportunity to be on the podium in his home race. And talking of Daniel Ricciardo, Melbourne will be the first test to see if Esteban Ocon can rattle the cage of Ricciardo. I think it will take few races before he can become major pain to his Aussie mate. If he is unable to bother Danny Boy most of the season, then I think we will see Bottas get another of his usual one-year extension at Mercedes, because I don't think Mr. Wolff, also known as Toto, is interested in another wingman. What say you?
Very true. He's got a great wingman that makes a killer salad dressing. So Ocon has to brush up on a couple of things, certainly. But if he can't rattle Ricciardo's je ne sais quoi, the game is over.
Now, I'm sure you read that because of the coronavirus, a lot of areas of northern Italy, including Ferrari's base in Modena, have been put into quarantine to limit the spread of the COVID issue. The measure is coming as the country has seen a dramatic spike in cases, and there have been several hundred people who have lost their lives. Unlike under the quarantine, the whole of the Lombardy region, where Milano is based, plus 14 provinces will be closed off, except to emergency access until April 3, locking down 16 million people. And this was written earlier in the day, and just before the entry into the palatial studios, Green Room, I read that they are extending this to the whole country. So this is not looking good for Italy, and obviously China has even bigger problem. But you and Kimi think it's no big deal.
Everybody is a comedian.
No, that's what you said last time.
That's what I said last time. Things evolve. We change our minds because we're smart and intelligent people.
Oh, nice to know that. Okay, now there's been a lot of brouhaha since the last podcast of the secret deal between FIA and Ferrari. Caca has hit the fan. The non-Ferrari powered teams are not happy with this deal, and now even Bernie Ecclestone is making comments about this regarding investigation into legality of Ferrari's power unit last season. Their joint statement says, and I believe the ringleader of this is Toto Wolff. This statement says an international sporting regulator has the responsibility to act with the highest standards of governance, integrity, and transparency. We hereby state publicly our shared commitment to pursue a full and proper disclosure in this matter, to ensure that our sport treats all competitors fairly and equally. We do so on behalf of the fans, the participants, and the stakeholders of Formula One. This gets even more interesting, as it continues to say, in addition, we reserve our rights to seek legal redress within the FIA's due process and before the competent courts. Both Ferrari and FIA obviously have access to Jacobi and Myers of Europe, and so do other teams. And it will be interesting how this thing develops, because I don't think this is going to go away anytime soon. And of course, Dr. Marco's mantra on this is classic. He said, and I quote, "This whole affair reaches proportions similar to that of FIFA. There is only one letter of difference between the FIA and FIFA." End of quote. How do you think this thing will pan out, sir?
Well, we could call Jean-Marie Balestre and see what he thinks, but I think a lot of people are making a big deal out of nothing. Come on, they are special. It is Ferrari, for goodness sakes.
Yeah, they have been since 1950, so let's give them a blank check to write any rules they want and break any rules they want. Interesting. And pay them $90 million before anybody gets a dime. Sounds like a very good deal.
Hey, they're suffering right now.
Well, we wish everybody all the best, of course, as far as this issue is concerned. Okay, sir, 2020, because we have to move forward to the action on the track. 2020 is going to be a very historic season every which way, and a lot of chatter on the web about this. And now that we are moments away from Melbourne, we shall talk about the 70th Formula One Championship season. Wall Street may be tumbling, but the stock of your favorite driver is living up to his tattoo, "I shall rise." Now I'm beginning to believe what you've been preaching since last year's Abu Dhabi Grand Prix. This is Lewis's championship. There is a strong buy rating on his record, equaling 7 championships, which will most likely also come at the expense of Michael Schumacher's number of Grand Prix wins, 91. Can you imagine the feelings fans, regardless of what side of the fence they are on, will have if Lewis takes his 91st or 92nd victory at Monza in September? Speaking for myself, which is what I can do, I will only think of one moment at that time, wherever it comes. And that time was when Michael Schumacher equaled Ayrton Senna's record of pole position. Need I say more? And I'm sure, as a diehard F1 fan, you remember what I'm talking about in the press conference.
I do remember the tears flowing out of Michael Schumacher and Nasser Hamid.
Yes, it was a very emotional moment for people who love Formula One. Okay, sir, then there is and when Lewis gets there, it will be, history will repeat itself. I think he will get emotional too, because it's just going to be too much talk and media hype, and I just hope he has Justin Bieber with him to comfort him with a pink towel.
Absolutely.
Okay, then there is the Max factor. 2020 is the last chance for him to give his compadres a real Dutch treat by becoming the youngest ever world champion. An incredible achievement it will be to make it happen against the monster mash of the moment, Lewis Carl Hamilton. Just like Nando becoming the youngest champion when he shot down the Red Baron. Dr. Marco is making waves that Max will take the fight to Lewis this season, and Honda is saying that they have improved their, performance with the car, especially at the start of the Grand Prix when drivers were complaining of quite a bit of wheel spin. And who can argue with Dr. Marco? Max had stated he does not care about such records, and that may be true, but I'm sure, like any other great talent, he would prefer his first World Championship sooner than later. If Honda can turn that GP2 engine into F1 Plus engine, then there's a good chance we may see a lot of fist pounding during the season from Toto, and something we haven't heard a lot from Lewis since 2014, him saying, "We did not have the pace today." That will be very, very interesting. And now we come to Prancing Horse and the pride of the riders. Finally, the FIA has taken the prancing horse to the water and made him drink a sip or two of reality and legality syrup, which makes me think they may not be able to kick down the competition in the Aussie Bond, which will be a shame as there are many among us who still see LCH as some kind of a joke. Even if they have the pace, and now Mattia Binotto has come out saying that he is not expecting in normal course of business Sebastian or Charles at the top of the podium. As far as Sebastian is concerned, he no longer has the wingman from the Finnish Air Force. In fact, he has to fight Thief in the Temple. And Mr. Leclerc had more pole position than any other driver and more wins than Seb last year, his first in the red car. So chances are awfully good that Seb will be fighting to take 5 on 3 fronts. And if you have to fight for any championship on 3 fronts, then it becomes very, very difficult, if not impossible. If Charles can become the first world champion from Monaco, that will be great. And again, winning against a 4-time world champion teammate will be very, very impressive. Bastian, on the other hand, can count on his experience to help him get his 5th championship in red, like his hero who had 5 of his 7 championships with Ferrari. What say you, sir? So maybe the question I should ask you, who do you think will finish second in the championship?
Who will finish second in the championship? Well, I don't know. It depends on that GP2 engine, Nasser. You know what they say. Yeek! No, it's going to be, we know it's LCH all the way, entire season, coronavirus or not.
No, that's why the question was, who will finish behind him?
You mean number 2?
Si, senor, in the championship.
You mean the person that nobody likes?
I think everybody likes Bottas and Max.
Do they? I'd say Bottas.
Let's see. It will be very exciting that if somebody can push Lewis and Mercedes from the very first Grand Prix. But man, if this is a Mercedes 1-2 from the front of the grid, then I think your prophecy will come true long before the season ends.
That would be sad if my prophecy came true.
Yes, and of course, since the race now is only few days away, our humble request to members of F1 Weekly Familia in Land Down Under, if they are there, please share with us some pictures. That will be greatly appreciated.
Keep up the good work, Nas. An outstanding job. So, why don't we do it now? Tech Talk with Tim.
Hello, listeners, and welcome to the 2020 Formula One season. I'm going to quickly speak about the technical regulation changes for the year, and then spend some time speaking about the big news out of testing, Mercedes' new steering system. First off, the 2020 cars will now have a tiny shark fin along the center line of the car and just a little in front of the rear wheels. This is to have a clearer place to display the driver's numbers, so this is cool. A technical regulation purely to affect the experience of the fans. Car front wings are now more regulated in terms of materials. Metal is now prohibited in the first 50 millimeters, or about 2 inches, of the front wing end plates, which will hopefully reduce tire punctures when a front plate strikes another car's tire. It's fun to think of that in a historical point of view. A few decades back, you'd be crazy to use anything other than metal for the front wing. What other choices did you have? Well, along came carbon fiber, and now the rules are prohibiting metal. Stricter regulations on cars' clutch controls will go into effect. Launching off the line now becomes more dependent on the driver's ability to control the clutch paddles, as there are limits to how much torque the car can control on its own. This is in the vein of reducing driver aids, which has seen traction control and other systems becoming banned over the years. I thought this one was really neat. Allowable fuel outside of the tank is decreased from 2 liters to a quarter liter. The fuel tank is also called the fuel survival cell for a reason. It's designed to keep the fuel contained and away from hot parts of the car during a crash. So having fuel pumped elsewhere in the car through unnecessary lines for whatever reason really flies in the face of safety, and so that has been limited severely. Most of these changes are pretty small, and there are even a few smaller changes dealing with what parts teams are allowed to buy versus needing to design. Limits on the quantities of kinetic energy recovery units is changing from 2 to 3, so this year is overall a little quiet in terms of technical regulations, because 2021 is positioned to bring huge changes to the sport. So that's it for the rule book, but F1 isn't only about doing what the rules say, it's about inventing what the rules don't prohibit. And during F1 testing, it was observed in onboard videos that the Mercedes steering wheel could be pushed as well as pulled, just like the controls of an airplane. But in F1, there's no takeoff or landing, so what does moving the wheel on this second axis do? Dual-axis steering, or DAS, is used to adjust the suspension system of the car in some new ways. F1 suspension systems are incredibly complex. There are all sorts of rods and linkages to allow or restrain specific movements of the tires as the car moves straight, turns into a corner, apexes, turns out of a corner, when weight is transferred from left to right or front to back as the car turns or brakes. But from what has been gathered so far, DAS seems to allow controllability of the camber and toe angles of the wheels. Camber is the angle a tire makes relative to vertical. When the tops of the front tires are closer to each other than the bottoms of the tires, that's camber. Okay, actually it's negative camber. F1 front wheels have some pretty obvious negative camber. As a car corners, the mass of the car is trying to push the car sideways over the outside tires, which causes the tops of the tires to move out and causes camber to become more positive. Starting with a negative camber means that the outside tire basically levels out in a turn, providing a large contact patch with the ground and good grip. But on the straights, only the inner edge of the tire makes contact with the ground if there's negative camber, so a lot of weight is placed on a small contact patch. That causes uneven heating and additional tire wear. It's theorized that as a Mercedes exits a turn and accelerates, the steering wheel can be pulled toward the driver to level out the wheels, eliminating the disadvantages of camber on the straights. Toe is another type of wheel angle, and the name toe makes it pretty easy to understand and remember. If your feet are parallel when they touch the ground, like a pair of wheels pointed straight forward, there's no toe angle. But if you angle your feet so your big toes get a little closer and your heels get a little further, that's toe in. Toe out is when your toes move apart and your heels get closer. Toe in and toe out affect car stability and responsiveness. F1 cars typically run with toe out in the front wheels. Not much, just a degree or so. And while this helps affect car responsiveness during turn in, it means the wheels aren't pointed in the direction the car is going on the straights. So there's sliding, heating, and wear associated with toe. With DAS, a driver can just dial it out. There may be an aerodynamic advantage to altering toe between the turns and straights as well, with air flowing differently over the car as it passes by the front tires. So there's a lot to learn here still, including how DAS affects tire life, car mechanical grip, and aerodynamics. One thing I found really interesting with DAS is that the pushing and pulling of the steering wheel works in a very intuitive way. When accelerating, the driver is naturally pushed back into the seat, so just holding onto the wheel and pulling it back gives the desired straight line camber and toe changes. During braking, which occurs at several Gs and really tries to throw a driver forward, the driver naturally pushes onto the steering wheel and begins to set up the suspension for a turn. Performance road cars with sequential gearboxes using shift knobs work the same way. Pull back to upshift and accelerate, push forward to downshift and decelerate. It will be fun to see how DAS affects the race outcome and how quickly the other teams can scramble to implement it themselves. I hope you enjoy the Australian GP and the 2020 season.
Tim, keep up the good work. Another 0 is in the mail, and we'll be seeing you at the Palatial Studios, Tim. Keep up the good work. And why don't we take a quick break, and we'll be back with Motorsports Mondial and the hosts. Weekly book review this week, F1 Exposed by Gary Sloan. We'll be back after this brief message.
Want to find out how much you know about Formula One? Are you interested in learning more about Formula One's history? Then have a listen to the Formula One Trivia Podcast, a weekly 10-question trivia quiz that will test your knowledge. Visit the website at www.f1triviapodcast.com to find out more.
Welcome back to F1weekly.com. Clark Rogers here, your host. And now, as we spin the globe and go around the world with Motorsports Mondial and the King, the Sultan himself, Nasser Hamid.
Thank you, sir. Would you like to start with your book review?
I would, Nasser. Thank you very much. So, today's book review, F1 Exposed by Gary Sloan. In the Pit Lane, F1 Exposed. And, of course, you can get a copy of this at inthepitlane.com. Gary sent me a copy, and it's fascinating. This talks about current F1 and the billions and billions and billions that go into this Carl Sagan-like bank account. And I'm telling you, it's a fascinating read. It's a quick read. It's well written. And once you start, you can't put it down. But it's interesting. It talks about the end of Eccleston, the beginning of Liberty Media, and who may possibly be taking over that. And it very well could be Toto, the dude that's on the rise. So, ladies and gentlemen, F1 Exposed, talking about the billions of dollars involved in winning in Formula One and the dirty and nastiness of some of these sponsors. But if it's big dollars, we really don't care what they're doing on the side. I'm not going to give it away. Read the book. In the Pit Lane, F1 Exposed by Gary Sloan. You can get this at inthepitlane.com. That would be inthepitlane.com. F1 Exposed by Gary Sloan. Nas, how's that spinning globe coming along?
Well, very interesting, very interesting. I love a good intrigue, an inside story from the pit lane.
Exactly. So it is exciting, and I suggest you read it as well, Nas.
Your wish is my command. Okay, so now we shall move on to Formula E. Says Arrivederci Roma. Round 2, set for first weekend in April, has been postponed. The first 2 rounds of the MotoGP have already been postponed. The boss man at Dorna has said they will continue the season till Christmas if need be. And I think this is a great idea. This way Marc Marquez can be his own Santa Claus and present himself with yet another championship, as likely as his fellow lucky racer on 4 wheels. And just again, few minutes before the start of recording, I saw a news item that MotoGP is now thinking of holding 2 races per weekend if they, go on missing more races. Okay, sir, now we're going to talk about Formula 2, previously known as our favorite Rapidos. They will start the season in Bahrain same weekend as the Formula 1 race, which of course will be no spectators. All eyes will be on Mick Schumacher as this will be his second season. And we all know what happens if you win this championship in your 3rd or 4th attempt. You normally have 3 choices: IndyCar racing, Formula E, or TV commentator. Nothing wrong with any of these, but getting into Formula 1 then becomes like trying to log on to a gambling website at work. Access denied. Those who are experienced in F2 and could be contenders include Italian Luca Giotto, Dutchman Mick Schumacher, and Chinese Guangyu Zhu. All won races last year, Guangyu becoming the first driver from his nation to win at this level, which was very impressive, and he is part of the Renault Driver Development Program. Mick Schumacher is in the Ferrari Driver Academy, and the name and the fame should get him into F1 someday. But to get a seat as a professional driver at Alfa Romeo or Ferrari or any other team, he will have to win a few feature races this season. All 3, Luca, Mick and Guangyu, can kiss their professional F1 career goodbye if the championship is won by a rookie, especially with a dominating performance like that was put on by Charles Leclerc and George Russell when they took the championship. And speaking of rookies, there are several young talented drivers, but none of them have shown Max or Ocon-like prowess in their junior career so far. And let's take a look at some of them. Top of the list is Robert Schwarzman from Russia. He won the Formula 3 championship last year in his 2nd year. He is member of FDA and a strong performance this year, especially if he wins the championship, can open doors at Alfa Romeo. He also has substantial financial backing from SMP Bank, big Russian bank. And as we all know, money talks, and team owners will listen gladly, even if it is speaking the language of Comrade Lenin. His fellow Ferrari Driver Academy member Marcus Armstrong is also a rookie in F2 this season. He is a very quick Kiwi, and I really expected him to win the Formula 3 championship not last year, but in 2018. He did not deliver, however, a championship-winning drive. It will be nice if he can do it this year. It will be nice to have a competitive driver from New Zealand in Formula 1 again. Next we come to fast driving and even faster talking Daniel Ticktum. After being dropped by Red Bull following a brief lackluster season with an overdose of bad attitude in Japanese Super Formula, he again has an opportunity to establish himself as a serious racer on and off the track. The kid is very quick, no question about this. He just has to cool down his J2 rockets. I think he wants to be a modern-day James Hunt, which, in this day and age of political correctness and this and that, is not going to fly. Now, this will be of interest to you. Red Bull and Honda are sponsoring a young Japanese horseshoe by the name of Yuki Tsunoda. So we can safely say he will be racing with a GP2 engine. He is 19 years old with only 1 year of experience in European racing. I wish him well, but folks, get ready for the second coming of Sato-san. You know what that means. Very quick but erratic. Okay, now, outgoing prince, incoming king. Past Friday, Prince Harry and King Louis, the GOAT, opened a new museum at Silverstone featuring cars from 70 years of racing at the birthplace of Formula 1 Championship. Prince Harry arrived in an electric Mercedes car driven by 6-time world champion, your favorite driver, and was greeted by dignitaries including former world champion R. Damon Hill. Nice to have this museum, especially since the Donington collection is now gone. Any thoughts on this museum and Louis being the VIP with Prince Harry, sir?
Oh, I think it's great. I was checking to see if I got an invitation. Nothing yet, but I'm sure that it's coming.
After the museum has been opened?
See.
Okay, so now we have a goodie bag. The season is starting in Australia this weekend, and this segment is called Sudden Impact. surprise winners of season openers. That's sort of a historical look which we like to do here at F1 Weekly. Shall we begin, sir, with your express written consent?
Let me talk to Pedro. He says okay.
You got the text. Thank you. Okay, 1952 Swiss Grand Prix. The season started on May 28 at the Bremgarten Street Circuit. Piero Taruffi was the winner in a Ferrari. This was his first and only Grand Prix win in Formula One. He also wrote a book which is an industry standard, The Technique of Motor Racing. He passed away in January 1988 at the age of 81. And I cannot tell you, when I was in high school and college days, and I used to read interviews of Niki Lauda and so many other great drivers, almost every driver I read who was successful made a mention that they had read this book. So one day you may have to do a review of this one. 1956 Argentine Grand Prix. History books show two winners of this race. Back in the day, numero uno could have a Cablamo or done blowed up, then fly to victory in wingman's car. And that's what Fangio did on lap 29 of the 98 lap race. His victory made Luigi Musso one-hit wonder. Musso lost his life after crashing his Ferrari in the early stages of the 1958 French Grand Prix at Reims while chasing Mike Hawthorne. 58 Argentine Grand Prix. First ever win in Formula One for a rear-engine car, courtesy of Sterling Moss, who started 7th. This was also first win for Cooper as a constructor. Grand Prix races were won by rear-engine Auto Union before the Second World War. Now we come to 1959, Monaco Grand Prix. First win for Jack Brabham in a green Cooper, one of few drivers who won the championship in the same year they scored their first Grand Prix win. 1962 Dutch Grand Prix. First win for Graham Hill. He also won the championship that year. Same year, of course, where he won his Grand Prix, and this was at Zandvoort in his BRM, and it's very good to see Zandvoort coming back. And have you seen the video of Max Verstappen driving an old Red Bull in the banking part of the circuit now?
Yeah, did you hear what he was screaming?
I did not hear his screaming. What did he say?
He said GP2 engine.
Oh, really? Wow. Well, okay, let's see if he gets a promotion to IndyCar racing by Honda. 1967 South African Grand Prix. Pedro Rodriguez, Cooper Maserati, first ever win for a Mexican driver in Formula One, and the last win for Cooper and Maserati names in Formula One. 1971 South Africa. Mario Andretti, winner on debut with Ferrari. 3 years earlier, Mario had started his F1 career in style by grabbing pole position on his first F1 race with Lotus at Watkins Glen. 1977 Argentina. This race I remember so well. Jody Scheckter. This was a real surprise. A brand new team headed by Canadian Walter Wolf, who was then the Lance Stroll of oil industry. The car was designed by Dr. Harvey Postlewhite and won its first ever race. And Scheckter would go on to win 2 more races. I believe they were Monaco and Canada. So very impressive start to this new team. 1989, Rio. Arnaud surprised himself and all by winning on his first outing on a prancing horse. His Ferrari 640 was designed by John Barnard of McLaren fame. So there you have it, sir, a goodie bag before the start of the season.
Outstanding, Nas. Now I have to ask you, did you watch any of the NASCAR in Phoenix race?
No, sir, I have not watched any of the NASCAR races in quite a while, except for the Daytona 500. Give me the excitement from that place, please.
Well, the excitement was, and this is a new term that I hadn't heard before, was cutting the dog leg.
Cutting the dog leg. Well, if you want to improve your English, you don't have to go to MIT or Stanford, just watch NASCAR and you'll hear new things. As was once written by the editor of Sports Illustrated.
Thank you, Nas. And once again, I just want to reiterate that I have learned a new racing term, and that is cutting the dog leg.
But the question I have is, how do you have a dog leg on an oval, or what Bernie Ecclestone would had. This is the track that Bernie called Kaka Little Oval, right?
Well, I just want to let you know, if you go to YouTube and Google NASCAR at Phoenix cutting the dog leg, you will understand.
Okay, I will certainly do this. And was the excitement dry excitement, like the heat there?
It was a dry heat, and it was exciting.
There you go. Very good. Very impressive. So, sir, any thoughts on the upcoming season opener?
I'm helping Lewis design the cabinet for all the trophies.
Man, I am really, really excited. Really looking forward to it. I think we're going to have a great season. And even if we have some sort of domination, at least history will be made by whoever wins. It's going to be a very monumental season as far as I'm concerned. I'm really going to enjoy, regardless of who wins.
And I'm going to enjoy the Bahrain Grand Prix.
Yeah, but see, there will be no spectators, but who's going to miss spectators there or at the Chinese Grand Prix?
So, pretty unbelievable. What a strange beginning. I still think there's strange things happening, especially with Italy being shut down as we went to air today. So, who knows?
Well, I will not be surprised that, the opening race of the what is called, used to be the Blancpain series, now it's called GT Challenge Europe, whatever, promoted by SRO, Stefan Rattel organization. Their opening round was in mid-April in Monza, and that has been postponed. I will not be surprised if the Vietnamese Grand Prix is also sans spectateur, no crowd.
It's a new sport, more exciting.
Yeah, it's very true. But at least there is racing, the global audience will not suffer. And as far as the Bahrain race is concerned, it's a night race, so it's not going to be a big issue.
Keep up the good work, Nas. I can't wait to see the race and LCH get lucky again. I want to thank all the listeners who listen. We'll talk to you next week. Good night.
Thank you. Bye-bye.